Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. What's going on, everybody? Jesse Montano, Meghan Angley, Guerrilla Sports, Off Ice Postgame Live. 4-2. Avs win this one in Calgary. Meghan, they end up getting 3 of 4 points on this trip. So it ends up being successful. That's a big loss for the Calgary Flames, who are trying to claw their way back onto the inside of the playoff picture. Meghan, you weren't with us this afternoon on the pod, not feeling great. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling much better. It felt like a precaution. I've known people who've been battling nasty colds and flus that have lasted weeks. And I'm on day 4 and I already feel a lot better. So I think it's just a mild cold, but I wanted to be careful.
An abundance of caution. Yeah. Pretty much everyone I know is nasally stuffed up, something like that, congestion to some extent. So yeah, like you said, everyone just kind of got this never-ending cold. All right, you and I were talking about it before the show this morning. Very early this morning, I was tweeting that Mucinex DM was keeping me awake. I did a tiny bit of research, and then a lot of people online let me know that yes, Mucinex DM, the long word that I'm not even going to try to pronounce, can act in certain people as a stimulant. I took it right before I went to bed, not because I'm super sick, but as you can hear, I'm just a little bit stuffed up, and I was like, wow, it'd be nice to just get like a little bit of extra relief tonight while I'm sleeping. What a great idea. 2:27 in the morning, to be exact. I just woke up and I was fully awake. Just fully awake for the rest of until 6 a.m. And then I was able to fall back asleep for like an hour, but then you have to get up and get going. So embarrassingly, I just didn't pay attention, didn't know what was in it, and found out that my body takes Mucinex DM as a stimulant. Check. Know that now going forward.
But were you coughing?
No. So
it worked.
So I guess that is that. Yes, silver. See, Meghan, that's why you're here. Always need this. I need that silver lining positivity, because I have felt like an alien all day long walking around, just because I got such a weird night's sleep.
I was, when I went down this rabbit hole, because I take Mucinex DM as well, and I have been over the last couple of days, I did see that same ingredient can cause kind of weird reactions in people too. And I remember speaking aloud that my words were coming out a little bit funky and just...
Yeah.
I think that there is some truth to that effect. I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to say hallucinogenic. I wasn't hallucinating at Guerrilla Sports Studios.
But that is the word that it uses when you look it up online. All right. We maybe need to have a Mucinex DM episode coming up here.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get into that in the off season.
Careful.
The Avs looked like they had a good night's sleep. I really liked the process for large portions of this game, Meghan, including late when it felt like Calgary started to push. It felt like the Avs were able to kind of put the brakes on that and apply pressure back the other way. But I want to go through this game kind of period by period, because I thought it broke out in a really interesting way. But as always, I just want to know high level, broad strokes thoughts. 4-2, Avs win over Calgary Flames. The shots end up 28-24 in the end. But a lot of those came from Calgary late in the third period.
Yeah, this felt like exactly the game that the Avs needed post-deadline to see a little bit more about what this depth is looking like. And it was tested so much more tonight, because we've been talking, that January period on the 20-game segment where 75% of the team's goals came from the same 5 people. It's been a point of concern for them to get depth scoring throughout the lineup. And since the deadline, they have a bit more of a complete third line and fourth line. And so this game felt representative of what these lines can be capable of when they're on, because I thought this was a good game from Calgary. And so I like that this wasn't necessarily a lesser opponent. This is a team desperately pushing for that wild card spot, and they're chasing Vancouver to do it. And so Calgary had a lot of incentive. They had just lost in a shootout previously as well. And so they're trying to get back in the win column, and these points matter to them in a big way as well. So I thought there was a lot of push from Calgary, especially early. And I liked that lines 1 through 4 on Colorado's side had an answer for it in terms of effort. And where that showed up the most at the end of the night came through lines 3 and 4, in my opinion. But I think it's a welcome thing because we've seen that the top 6, when they're going, which has been pretty consistently lately, they're such a threat to be reckoned with. And so this was a big night. This was the night for the depth to get going. And so I couldn't have scripted it any better. I'm really excited by what the third and the fourth line teased tonight in this game.
Yeah. This game, I thought, process-wise and from the standpoint of what you're talking about right there, the top to bottom contributions, including Ryan Lindgren, including Eric Johnson, who both had individual moments to me that stood out positively in separate ways. This game reminded me a lot of the type of hockey that we saw the 2022 Avalanche play as we got later and later into the season and into the playoffs. Just controlled the game. I'm with you. I didn't think this was a bad game from Calgary, but at no point, maybe there was a little 5-minute segment there in the third period, a little bit early, where I felt like Calgary was starting to press and the Avs had to kind of, play on their heels a little bit and defend. But even that, I thought they did pretty efficiently. Scott Wedgwood came up with a couple nice saves. But this was a game that just felt very in control. Anytime Calgary pushed, the Avs got the game settled down, pushed back, took back control of the game, started playing north. And it felt like it was wave after wave after wave of that, to your point, where you really wanted to see the depth shine through. And I thought you got that, where shift to shift, it felt like you were getting a consistent effort. And I thought that was, like I said, reminiscent of what we saw when this team was so dominant and deep a couple seasons ago. Vaguely already in the chat with a super chat. Jesse didn't check what was in it. Suspended 20 games for violation of league substance policy. Yeah. I was telling my beautiful wife, I was like, that's my own fault. I'm just dumb. I didn't look. But yeah, I'm going to need the $4.99 for all the salary I'm forfeiting with this 20-game suspension. So thank you. Megan, first period, it just really felt like, again, the Avs came out on their toes. Controlled play, shots finished 7-2 after the first period. That grew eventually to 20-3 at one point, I believe. But really, again, just in control is the way that I continue to feel like the phrase that kept coming to mind as I watched this game.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned it, but Calgary started this game with a little bit more of a push. It did feel like shift after shift was spending a little bit more time in Colorado's own end on behalf of Calgary. And so I like the response from Colorado in recognizing that Calgary came to utilize their own speed to their advantage. Colorado was ready to match that. And when it comes to speed, that is an area of the Avs game that they can surpass other teams when they apply themselves. And, there have been games where we've seen maybe some fatigue sets in, and so they're not always winning those races to the puck, and it costs them. This was a game where I felt like they were using their speed to their advantage in a way that Calgary did not have an answer to. Quick breakouts, hitting exits with speed and transition, and just feasting on Calgary line changes, using that as a vulnerability and becoming just monsters on the forecheck as a result of it. And that was where I saw the effort, lines 1-4. So it wasn't like it was this clinic on behalf of Colorado, but it was dominant in terms of puck possession. And it was because of a commitment to driving play north in transition, like you talked about, and then a commitment to the forecheck to win those battles and just keep the puck. And so that was an area that lines 1-4 could hold up to. And I think that's kind of where they get rewarded too on the Lindgren goal is they hit up ice with speed, and Coyle's dump and has a little too much power in it that Wolf goes to play it behind the net, realizes that's really not the move. And so it goes to the boards, and Ross Colton is the one who beats Kevin Rooney to the wall to claim that puck. And that's how I think a lot of the success for Colorado was born. It's by not only winning the races to the puck initially, whether it's settling it along a rim, along the boards, and then winning the puck battle against another player to settle the puck, play the puck, and that's how he gets it out to Lindgren out high. And this is where, it's not entirely obvious in the first period, but it becomes very obvious by the second. Ross Colton's line was a monster tonight to play against. And so that's sort of, you see the early glimpses of it in the first period. And it's with play like from Ross Colton, just winning that battle along the wall. It seems small, but it becomes a bigger part of the story throughout this game.
Well, so I'm glad you called out Ross Colton, because I wanted to talk about him at some point, or this line really as a whole, because what I thought was, we talk so much, and we've even heard Jared Bednar recently talk about the way that Ross Colton plays and the way that they want him to play. And it's exactly what we were just describing. We've seen the skill he has at points earlier this season. He's got ability to play with the puck on his stick. It's not like he's a grinder who doesn't know what to do with the puck when he finally gets to it, but he plays so heavy. He gets in deep, everything that you were just saying. And then he has the ability to make the play, and he's playing with players right now that I think complement that play style. We talked about that when we saw success out of Ross Colton earlier in the season of, he was getting a chance to play with Mikko Rantanen and Nathan McKinnon, and he was able to, distribute the puck to players after, again, going through a lot of the progressions of what you just talked about, to players who could finish. And it feels like he's back with a line that's gelling that way and creating opportunities and tonight getting rewarded. And right there, you and I talk about it. You and I have talked about it several times this season of what it is that the Avs like so much about getting those shots through from the point. It's very much part of their system. That's by design. You see Nathan McKinnon float out high and send those pucks to the net. Sam Girard a few nights ago, a backhand floated to the net. Tonight, Ryan Lindgren off this cycle that you're talking about. The Avs move that cycle out high. The high cycle is something that this team popularized a few years ago. Gets the puck to the net through bodies, through traffic. You're looking for tips, screens, whatever. And this is now 2 games in a row where we've seen that type of cycle, moving it out high, pucks to the net, pay off for the Avs. And it's just so fun to see. Again, you mentioned Ross Colton, Charlie Coyle, just the way that line works. You see it work. You see the puck get out high, bodies go to the net, puck goes to the net. That is textbook Jared Bednar hockey right there.
And there's a reason it works. Lindgren's shot through traffic may or may not go in, but Kiviranta is there in the lane to the net as a screen to Dustin Wolf, who, as a goaltender, tracks pucks very well. And so that was the Avs side of things. They had business to take care of against a very good goaltender who I think played very well tonight. And so
he played really well.
Kiviranta was there to intentionally, maybe claim a rebound if one became available, and very fortunately just acts as a partial screen instead. And so it works. And I think why it works is because of the speed of which this play unfolds too. Sometimes the Avs on that cycle can dust the puck off for a few seconds too many. I think tonight there was quick passing. They'd settle the puck and immediately move it. And that speed on the cycle, I think, was very hard for Calgary to contend with. And so even a good goaltender who sees pucks very well is not immune from a screen. And I think that's where Kiviranta plays his role very perfectly on that Lindgren goal.
Yep. No, I completely agree about Dustin Wolf. I thought he was really sharp tonight in a lot of areas, including the Cale Makar penalty shot. That I'm sure we'll talk about here in just a second, can kind of look like maybe not a great play from Cale, but I thought Dustin Wolf just gave him nothing to look at. I thought, Cale tried his, couple moves, couple head fakes. And again, he just gave him nothing to look at. So, second period, I thought the Avs really stepped on it. Again, like I said, shots end 7-2 after the first period. Ran it up near 20-3 at one point. Avs were all over the Flames early in the second, Megan.
Yeah, and it starts, you credited Scott Wedgwood coming up with some big saves. That's a huge piece in the early story of this game and how it got to a place where the Avs could be so dominant. There is a breakaway chance from Dryden Hunt early in the second period, and Scott Wedgwood absorbs it pretty easily. And it's on the heels of what was a stretch pass and partial rush attempt on behalf of the Avs. And so it's sort of where the Avs were utilizing their speed and Calgary was prepared to try and utilize their speed the other way. And I felt the Avs had a pretty good answer for it outside of that breakaway opportunity, of course. And I think that's where things became more dominant for the Avs, is they were not only becoming hard to contend with playing north, but coming back, they were more aggressive in their neutral zone coverage, kind of breaking up some of that speed upon entry for Calgary and just making it a little bit harder. But of course, Scott Wedgwood coming up with a big save early there, and at other points in this game, to include on the penalty kill later. Huge game from Scott Wedgwood. Like, this felt between Parker Kelly and Wedgwood. I don't know who's getting the big hat. They both would have been deserving of it because of how Wedgwood played, but this definitely feels like Parker Kelly's night.
Well, yeah, and I want to circle back to Scott Wedgwood here in a minute, because I agree. I thought he was huge at a few different times. And while the number of chances, at least through the first 40 minutes, weren't necessarily a lot, I thought there were several quality chances in there for the Flames. And I want to get back to some of those stops that he made. But like you said, a lot happening, a lot going to the net. I noticed Marty Netchus several times tonight, but it's Parker Kelly who scores a goal and again earns that breakaway, mini breakaway, off just outworking other guys. You see the frustration from Jonathan Huberdeau. Not only does he misplay that puck a little bit, but then gets out-muscled and outskated by Parker Kelly and beats Dustin Wolf clean on a night where, like we were saying earlier, he had a very good night. And then when he adds to it later, it just adds to the story. But again, this all just keeps going back to the theme of what you talked about, of having that bottom six that's just going to outwork other teams. What a key that was for the Avs during their playoff runs. Anytime you're going beyond the first round, you need contributions from your depth regularly. And this is the type of effort you want to see. This is what Jared Bednar is looking for. This is what Chris McFarland envisioned when putting it together.
And I love this about that first Parker Kelly goal. It starts with a battle for the puck in the corner in their own end, and it's Jack Drury who wins that battle, gets the puck to Logan O'Connor. O'Connor angles it out to center ice, and there's this knowing, too, that Parker Kelly has in playing with O'Connor, playing with Drury. Like, he is anticipating an opportunity that's not necessarily going to be there if Huberdeau doesn't bobble that puck, but he's prepared for it. And it's an opportunistic, work-based attitude that obviously rewards him because he's able to skate away with it because Huberdeau does not have that puck, and it leads to a goal for it. But it starts with hard work in their own end on behalf of Drury and O'Connor, with a kind of tactful clear, in my opinion, that makes it a race for the puck then at center ice. And even though Huberdeau gets there first, he bobbles it. So, Parker Kelly comes away clean in the end. And I think that's just kind of what that line can do best at their best. And I love to see it because it goes back to what you're saying about them coming in waves in the playoffs and the hard work just kind of beating out the rest. Because I don't think, even I listened to the Calgary broadcast, I don't think they were expecting that kind of speed from Parker Kelly to be ready to take advantage of that turnover opportunity. So I like the way that these lines 3 and 4 can sneak up on teams.
So, all right. So this goes back to what we talked about. I think it was earlier this week. I don't know.
It's the Mucinex.
I was going to say there's a second. It doesn't matter. I felt crazy all day. Doesn't matter. What we talked about on the show earlier this week, I believe, about the moves that Chris McFarland made really allowed, in my opinion, this team to kind of slot players in where you would ideally want them. It's not anything, it's not a knock on Parker Kelly, Logan O'Connor, any of these guys who were, bumped down a line or two. But I'm just sitting here saying, look, Parker Kelly is played at center on your third line for the vast majority of the season. You're moving him to wing where he's been slightly more effective, and you're putting him on the wall. And suddenly you're in a position where you can slide him down, and the matchups are just a little bit. I know it gets out there. That play happens against Jonathan Huberdeau, one of the top players for Calgary. But you're just putting these guys in positions to be successful, in my opinion. You're putting him out there in situations where you feel like it's part of the reason why Jared Bednar doesn't shy away from matchups. He tries to construct his lines with the when he's got a roster like this that's healthy in a way where it's like, yeah, we'll match up any way you want because we're going to trust that our fourth line is going to be better or equivalent to any fourth line we're going to go up against. Same for our third line, second line, first line. Again, something that was such a staple of what we talked about 3 years ago. And it felt like it was glimpses of that for me tonight.
I think, too, what sort of reinforces that point is the fact that through 2 periods, the top line only has 2 shots on net. Manson and Lindgren, and Manson obviously doesn't play in this third period, had 5 together through that point. And the depth by the end of the night, 4 shots on goal for the third line, 4 shots on goal for the fourth line, and only 3 apiece for the top 6. And I think that sort of paints the picture that Calgary had a good game plan for what to do to shut down Colorado's top players, but I don't think they were expecting the depth to come at them, and so their game plan didn't necessarily account for the attack from Colorado's depth, and I think that's what gave them an advantage tonight in a lot of ways.
Well, and it's to me, this is the difference between what we see, with playoff teams that can go deep. Let's go back. I've been talking a lot about 3 years ago. Let's go back 2 years ago when the Avs played the Seattle Kraken in the first round. That was a team that, when we looked at that matchup, everything at the top said, yeah, the Avs should win this series going away. But as that series wore on, it wasn't even that the Avs weren't ready for the depth of the Seattle Kraken. It was just the fact that night after night, shift after shift, even if you were getting your ideal matchups, it was just hard for the Avs to be able to, roll all 4 lines deeper into the game because they couldn't win those matchups at the bottom of the lineup. And it just became something where no matter how prepared you were for it, you just didn't have the legs, you just didn't have the ability to keep up. And again, I'm not trying to get carried away with what we saw here tonight, but that's what you're building towards, right? Like that's the goal. Is where it's like, yeah, you can be prepared for the way that we play. You can build game plans around what Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar are doing. But can you continue when we have lines 1 through 4 that are playing that same style? Yeah, Nathan MacKinnon's not out there every time, but with your mix of defensive pairing, Sam Girard, Josh Manson, Devon Taves, Cale Makar, however you want to put them out there, Sam Malinsky, you're going to be able to execute that system in a way that you want. And it's just hard to keep up with that line after line after line, shift after shift, when they're skating like they were tonight. And again, that's what I'm saying. You want to take tonight and build towards, what you and I are talking about here.
Certainly. And it's because it's the time of year. It's the games that remain. It's a very short runway to the end of the season. And so the front office, in shoring up this depth across the lineup, is also taking a chance because there's not a lot of time for them to get acclimated. And so they're counting on this starting now and building from here and kind of snowballing into the postseason. They want this to come together quickly. And that's why I think it's important for this game to happen just a couple days removed from the deadline. A week removed from the deadline.
A week removed from the deadline. Get into the third period. You knew that there was going to be a push from Calgary down 2-0. They do push. It felt like they really did pick up some momentum. Scott Wedgwood, despite, as well as I thought he played, look, Calgary was pushing. Nice play, goes to the net, finds a puck. But again, what I just thought was so encouraging, if you're the Avs in the exact context of what you're talking about, the games you have left, the stakes that are in front of you, what you're what you're looking at in the standings, all of that. I like the fact that it felt like the Avs were able to say, hey, we give up a goal, putting a stop to this, and we're going the other way.
Yeah, I'm just looking here. Dallas loses tonight, puts Colorado 3 points back of Dallas, though Dallas has 2 games in hand on Colorado. There is still now a path forward in the Central Division that I don't know if it felt there pre-deadline. It kind of just seemed like if they can prove that they're more than a wild card team, that would be satisfactory. But I think that they have a chance to push for even more than that in terms of what's at stake. And so the timing is significant. The way they close out this third period, another Parker Kelly goal just sort of adds to the point of it all. And, it was kind of a mix of lines, but like the Colton Coyle Kiviranta line finished through 2 periods with 0 scoring chances against and 0 shots against. They finished with just 1 shot against, 0 scoring chances against at 5v5. Monster of a line all night. obviously to some of that, like, kind of look at Ross Colton and his role then on this Parker Kelly goal, the Lindgren goal in the first period. He takes contact below the goal line and capitalizes on a miscue in how the puck is played behind the net, and is able to then pass to Kelly to set up this goal scoring opportunity. So this couldn't come at a better time for Ross Colton, a player whose game has had kind of highs and lows and has had dry spells throughout points this season. I think he's getting a little bit of consistency in what to expect on a nightly basis, and we're seeing nothing new in terms of what Ross Colton is. It's just kind of like the high evolved version of what he should be.
Yep.
And I'm really excited because that also couldn't come at a better time.
We're seeing through the moves that the Avs made, you just mentioned Ross Colton kind of being able to tap into that version of him you want. I think these are side effects of you are seeing these side effects. Geez, Mucinex, man. You're seeing the side effects of putting Charlie Coyle with Ross Colton, putting Brock Nelson with Val Nichushkin. These are the moves that they made that are complementary to the players they have in their lineup. Megan, I can tell you're especially amped about this game and the result and the process and the way that it got there.
I think it's the
So it's probably the Mucinex. I want to tee you up to talk about Ryan Lindgren. Because I thought he had a good game tonight.
That is so funny. Am I like the Ryan Lindgren girl? I'm excited because I did sort of tease, one, it is a shame that they go down to 5D tonight. I kind of feel like the way they start is they go into the third period, up 2 goals. Maybe there's this sense of we've got a little bit of depth on D. We don't need to push it. Manson already wasn't feeling great going into the second period. Let's not put him out for the third. We have a 2-goal advantage at this point. Obviously, then Calgary scores 1. But I wonder if that was the mindset, and hopefully it's then just not super serious with Josh Manson. And just kind of a cautionary thing that they leave him out of the lineup. This was a weird way to talk about Ryan Lindgren, but there is significance to how this game with just 5D to be utilized gets one, because that's even more heightened responsibility for Lindgren. And I loved how involved he got in the attack. He finished with 2 shots on goal, 3 additional attempts blocked, but he's hitting. So this was a highly physical game on behalf of Calgary, almost double the hits. But Ryan Lindgren being among the hits leaders on the team. So showing that physicality that we were promised and eating big minutes. It's a 20-minute night for Ryan Lindgren. This is a player that we shipped out Kevin DeHaan for. And so I think, some people weren't sure where to put him. Is he a top 4 defenseman? He obviously was being overutilized in New York as a top pair guy. But when Josh Manson leaves the lineup, he does sort of have to absorb that second pair role a little bit more solidly. And I think he handled himself really well tonight. He was blocking shots, helping out Scott Wedgwood. I think there was a little bit of a collision. That just feels like an Andreas Englund rite of passage. We're past it now. It's fine. But I really like to see this from Ryan Lindgren. Even the Calgary broadcast was kind of talking about how this isn't going to be the flashiest player and maybe one of the quieter additions from the Avs deadline on the back end, but it serves such a huge purpose. And I think you can even kind of see on the score sheet the purpose that it serves, because he's a little more multidimensional than I think he gets credit for. But at the end of the day, he's a stay-at-home defenseman that's going to do exactly that. And when you lose Josh Manson, it just puts an extra focus on why that's important.
Well, right. And we heard so much talk about the fact that when the Avs would go down Josh Manson, whether it be with injury, penalty, whatever, that there was so much talk about, will they lose that element out of their lineup? That's not the case anymore. Also, the part that we were just talking about a minute ago, players being more cast in their roles here with this version of the Avalanche than maybe they were in, whether it be with the Avs or with their previous team. You're not asking Ryan Lindgren to eat up top pairing minutes and take top pairing matchups. On a night like tonight, yeah, maybe a little bit more of an elevated role than we would normally see. But that's okay. You think he can do that because he did that, on a bigger stage, not a bigger stage, but, in a bigger role in New York. And then you're talking about him being more multidimensional than people give him credit for. Isn't it something that here it is, another player that we are talking about, maybe having more offensive upside than they thought after they arrive in Colorado? It just continues to be a trend that Jared Bednar and this coaching staff can get their hands on these players who can come in and, like you said, play really solid shutdown roles, really responsible defensively, but find a way to get more out of their game than that. Time after time after time fitting into this system, even including guys like Jack Johnson, and he had offensive upside in his game once before, but it had, kind of fallen off. But even for the defenseman the Avs found a way to get that out of him. And here it is again, like you said, more positive offensive results from Ryan Lindgren than maybe we were expecting.
And I think the defensive results will regulate in
Mucinex.
Colorado. He counts for a couple giveaways of the puck, but when I look at what he's replacing in the lineup, I still think that Calvin DeHaan was more simple in his puck decisions, but in a way that telegraphed pucks on the breakout and sometimes became very easy for other teams to anticipate and would hurt their transition up ice. Whereas I think the multi-dimension aspect of a Lindgren gives them a little bit more variety in what he's going to do. I'm going to even refer to it as puck skill, but I think that actually matters. And then, of course, his speed that can keep up with the Avs in the way that they like to play is the other kind of underrated add of a Ryan Lindgren. So I think we're going to see his defensive numbers gradually improve in Colorado. And I think the offensive upside is that Colorado bump everybody talks about, and we just need to start underestimating at this point.
Yeah. Let's wind it down. Talk about Scott Wedgwood. Just give him, a minute here. Again, I thought for his second straight game, for him, he was really strong, especially, we talk about timely saves. Yes, you want your goalie to make saves all throughout the games, but there's moments when you need them more than others. And I thought Scott Wedgwood came up with those tonight when the Avs needed them most, especially late in the game when Calgary was pushing and you're defending not only a 2-goal lead, but then at a certain point, a 1-goal lead. I thought Scott Wedgwood, again, is just showing you can have confidence in this guy if you need to go to him.
It feels almost surreal for the Avs to have this much security in their goaltending tandem, because it felt a little doomy, like, oh, Mackenzie Blackwood's under the weather. That's not great. But Scott Wedgwood did just have a shutout. So I feel a lot of confidence in what he is. I feel like he's come back from the Four Nations break and has played great hockey. And he was playing great before it, too. So that's not necessarily a surprise, but it's like he reached another level coming out of it that somehow builds even more trust when there was already a lot there to begin with. So I am thrilled with the continued solid play from Scott Wedgwood. It's like Pavel Francouz territory in that this is a goaltender that you could kind of look at and wonder, could he be a starter on a different team? Like, the goalie market's kind of grim, and I find myself thinking that, and I have to calm down a little bit, but that's where I'm at with Scott Wedgwood. It's very Pavel Francouz territory. The team battles in front of him, they play hard in front of him, and he gives them results on a nightly basis.
Well, and this has kind of always been the MO of Scott Wedgwood, right? Like, he did for a while in this league really teeter on that, 1A, 1B. Can he be the starter? We've seen him at different stops, including in Dallas, where they've had to go to him for extended stretches. And he's shown he can play at a high level, for extended stretches. I think you have a really nice tandem working out here. It seems like they get along really well. And I think you're finding a good rhythm. That's a word Jared Bednar uses all the time. Rhythm. And I think he's finding that with his tandem. Like you mentioned earlier, it does bring the Avs within 3 points to the Dallas Stars, though the Stars do have 2 games in hand, and it'll pretty much stay like that the rest of the way. The Dallas Stars had 4 consecutive days off this week. The Avs get that at the end of the season. They finished their season. By the time the Avs play game 82, the Stars will be at game 80. The NHL no longer ends its season on the same day with every team playing game 82 at the same time. So it'll pretty much stay that way. Dallas might close the gap to 1 game here or there, but by the time the Avs get done, there is still some time left to play. The Avs do regain their 4-point lead over the Minnesota Wild. The Wild do have a game in hand. They will play tomorrow, I believe. But the Avs now sit at 83 points. To the point you made earlier, Megan, trying to chase down the Dallas Stars, maybe try to get some home ice as I slip out of my chair here. This Mucinex is messing me up. I got to get out of here. Any final thoughts on the night? Standings, the way the Avs played, Parker Kelly, Scott Wedgwood, anything?
Gosh, I'm just a little in my feelings about Parker Kelly. I don't know if this is a side effects of the Mucinex too, but I was almost tearing up watching Drury and OC battle to try and get him the opportunity for the hat trick. And even the hat trick not getting one aside, just looking at how his path in Colorado started, this was a guy in training camp that we weren't sure was even going to stick around on the NHL roster. Not so different from Kiviranta, who had to go to the Eagles in a failed PTO turned success story eventually after going to the Eagles, setting aside any sort of pride. Kiviranta becomes a little bit of a success story this season. Parker Kelly finding success this year. And it all starts with what you said, being able to play a role that's maybe more suited for him. But he's thriving, and it just made me so happy to see the way in which he can help this team. I think we've seen it a little bit now, but not just a guy who scored 2 goals tonight, but a huge presence on the penalty kill. And that's been the story of Parker Kelly this year. So I wanted to give him some flowers and a shout out. I think he's been such a wonderful addition to this team, and I need to eat some crow based on how I was talking about him back in training camp.
Well, no, I mean, he's played a lot with Logan O'Connor this year, and he's giving some vibes of OC, the mayor of Denver.
He's the mayor of Calgary now.
Yeah, that's right. He's the mayor of wherever he goes. Mayor of Calgary, mayor of Denver. He's just the mayor.
Just mayor.
But yeah, I think some of that's rubbing off on him, and you're seeing that a lot. To your point, from Parker Kelly, just earning every inch. And when you're doing the right things, you get rewarded with these types of games. Every now and then, we see it for Logan O'Connor all the time. He'll go through these pockets where the pucks are just going in. It's because he does the right thing over and over. Jared Bednar will take that every single night. That's how you build trust. That's how you stay in the lineup. That's how you go deep in the playoffs. Megan, that's going to do it. Avs take this one 4-2 in Calgary, knocking off the Flames. Avs pick up 2 valuable points, pull within 3 points of the Dallas Stars, trying to track down second in the Central Division. It was a good night for the Avs, Megan. I thought a lot of good things, periods 1, 2, and 3. 4 line 60, 110D tonight, but it's going to take 2 to go the rest of the way. She's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montano. Girl Sports Off Ice. Off day tomorrow for everyone, Avs and us. We'll be back at it, bringing you everything from practice on Sunday. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.